Hi, I'm James Lee Jobe, Poet Laureate for the City of Davis, California, and I'm going to be reading you poems tonight from Carl Sandburg's selected poems called Harvest Poems, which has recently come back into my possession. Now, I had a copy of this that I carried around for many years when I was young. It was in my backpack when I hitchhiked across the country several times, and where I moved, it went with me, and I moved a lot when I was young. And I gave it away to someone finally after all those years. And Poet Laureate Emeritus Dr. Andy Jones of UC Davis gave me a bunch of poetry books as he was preparing for a move, and I got Harvest Poems came back into my possession. So I'm very pleased. Normally, Harvest Poems, as I said, is a selected poems, and normally I don't really buy the selected poems too much. Collected poems, which has everything, but selected poems to me has always been kind of like a greatest hits records, the greatest hits of Chicago. Well, I always like the album cuts too, and I tend to buy the whole books, right? But Sandburg's collection is so vast and so good that the selected poems it's a very fine collection, and this has selections from many books in it. Sandburg won 3 Pulitzers. He won Pulitzers both in poetry and for his biography of Abraham Lincoln, which was 6 volumes. I have a few Sandburg stories I'm going to put up front here. He was writing Abraham Lincoln, the Prairie years, and Abraham Lincoln, the war years, 2 volumes and then 4 volumes. And it took him a decade. He spent a whole decade writing that, right? And he was so obsessed with Lincoln. First of all, he filled his barn with notes. Picture an old-fashioned barn filled with notes on Lincoln. And he was so obsessed at this point, his wife decided to play a joke on him one day. Now, every day before he sat down to write, Sandburg was in the habit of taking a stroll in some nearby woods. His wife hired an actor to dress up like Abe Lincoln and stand on the trail. And Sandburg was so obsessed when he walked past, he didn't even think much of it. He just said, "Good morning, Mr. President," and kept walking. Sandburg was in his day a very famous poet and very popular. And there was something of a sort of make-believe rivalry between him and Robert Frost. Really, they liked each other, but they would kind of rag on each other a little bit in interviews. And they had both of them, those god-awful haircuts of the early 1900s, those really butchered-up haircuts. And Sandburg used to say that Robert Frost was so obsessed with himself that he would cut his own hair, while he, Sandburg, went to a working man's barber shop. That's another one. And another favorite of mine is Sandburg kept dairy goats, a few dairy goats. And sometimes people wanting interviews or whatever would show up at his place unannounced, which he did not like. Before he'd talk to you, he'd make you drink a glass of goat milk. Would have worked for me. I actually like goat milk. So let's get this going. I'm mostly going to read from Chicago Poems and Cornhuskers. What happened to Fizzog? There's one weird poem I wanted to start with. That's from later on. Here it is. I wanted to start with a poem from a later book, actually. This is from Good Morning America in 1928, and it's called Fizzog. Phizzog. I love this poem, Fizzog. This face you got, this here Fizzog you carry around, you never picked it out for yourself at all. At all. Did you? This here Fizzog, somebody handed it to you, am I right? Somebody said, "Here's yours, now go see what you can do with it." Somebody slipped it to you, and it was like a package marked, "No goods exchanged after being taken away." This face you got. And we do got to live with that face. Chicago Poems came out in 1916. It was a big break for Sandburg. A very popular book, as it is today. And from Chicago Poems comes one of his more famous poems called Chicago, which is This is heavenly work. This is heavenly. This is working man poetry, you know. Chicago. Hog butcher for the world. Tool maker, stacker of wheat. Player with railroads and the nation's freight handler. Stormy, husky, brawling city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them. For I've seen your painted women under the gas lamps, luring the farm boys. And they tell me you're crooked, and I answer, yeah, it's true. I've seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, on the faces of women and children, I've seen the marks of want and hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer this at my city, and I give them back the sneer and say to them, come and show me another city, with lifted heads singing so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and gunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger set vivid against the little soft cities. Fierce as a dog with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding. Under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth, under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs who has never lost a battle, bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, under his ribs the heart of the people, laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half-naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and freight handler to the nation. That's Chicago. You ever been to Chicago? Even today, it's a fitting description, a century later. And for this working man's poetry, this working man's poet, he also can get in some beautiful lyrics at times. From the same collection, This Is Lost. Desolate and lone, all night long on the lake, where fog trails and mist creeps, the whistle of a boat calls and cries unendingly like some lost child in tears and trouble, hunting the harbor's breasts and the harbor's eyes. Ah, that's lovely. This is Mag. Mag, M-A-G, for Maggie. Margaret, Mag. I wish to God I never saw you, Mag. I wish you never quit your job and came along with me. I wish we never bought a license and a white dress for you to get married in the day we ran off to a minister and told him we would love each other and take care of each other always and always, long as the sun and rain last anywhere. Yes, I'm wishing now you lived somewhere away from here and I was a bum on the bumpers 1,000 miles away, dead broke. I wish the kids had never come, and rent and coal and clothes to pay for, and a grocery man calling for cash, everyday cash for beans and prunes. Wish to God I never saw you, Mag. I wish to God the kids had never come. I'm just kind of going through this. I really didn't lay these out, Limited. One of the train poems. I'm riding on a limited express, one of the crack trains of the nation. Hurtling across the prairie into blue haze and dark air go 15 all-steel coaches holding 1,000 people. All the coaches shall be scrap and rust, and all the men and women laughing in diners and sleepers shall pass to ashes. I ask a man in the smoker where he's going, and he says, Omaha. Under a hat rim. While the hum and the hurry of passing footfalls beat in my ear like the restless surf of a wind-blown sea, a soul came to me out of the look on a face. Eyes like a lake where a storm wind roams, caught me from under the rim of a hat. I thought of a mid-sea wreck and bruised fingers clinging to a broken stateroom door. It's a wonderful leap right at the end, isn't it, to the stateroom door? And maybe the most famous Carl Sandburg poem of all. It's very brief, it's beautiful, slightly mystical, very lyrical. Fog. The fog comes in on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. Let's do that one again. The fog comes on little cat feet. I think I said before the fog comes in. No. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. All right. Theme in Yellow. Another one of those poems that I just loved since I was a boy. Do you have poems like that? Probably, huh? Theme in Yellow, from Chicago Poems, Carl Sandburg. I spot the hills with yellow balls in autumn. I light the prairie cornfields, orange and tawny gold clusters, and I am called pumpkins. On the last of October, when dusk is fallen, children join hands and circle round me, singing ghost songs and love to the harvest moon. I am a jack-o'-lantern with terrible teeth, and the children know I'm fooling. Marvelous. All right. Let's move on to Cornhuskers. Cornhuskers came out a couple years later in 1918. So 1918, this is the heart of World War I for America. Now, America got into that war a little later than the rest of the world. There's a long poem called Prairie, and I'm going to read a couple of sections of that to start off. I was born on the prairie, and the milk of its wheat, the red of its clover, the eyes of its women gave me a song and a slogan. Here the water went down, the icebergs slid with gravel, the gaps in the valleys hissed, and the black loam came, and the yellow sandy loam. Here between the sheds of the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachians, here now a morning star fixes a fire sign over the timber claims and cow pastures, the corn belt, the cotton belt, the cattle ranches. Here the gray geese go 500 miles and back with the wind under their wings, honking the cry for a new home. Here I know I will hanker after nothing so much as one more sunrise, or a sky moon of fire doubled to a moon river of water. The prairie sings to me in the forenoon, and I know in the night I rest easy in the prairie arms, on the prairie heart. Lovely connection to place. I write so much myself about the Sacramento Valley and the Pewter Creek watershed here where I live, and he's doing the same with where he's from, the prairie. I'm the prairie, mother of men waiting. They are mine, the threshing crews eating breakfast, the farm boys driving steers to the railroad cattle pens. They are mine. The crowds of people at a 4th of July basket picnic, listening to a lawyer read the Declaration of Independence, watching the pinwheels and Roman candles at night, the young men and women 2 by 2, hunting the bypaths and kissing bridges. They are mine. The horses looking over a fence in the frost of late October, saying good morning to the horses hauling wagons of rutabaga to market. They are mine, the old zigzag rail fences, the new barbed wire. I love the part about the horses looking over the fence, saying good morning to the horses hauling the wagons. That is marvelous! Let's move a little deeper into the book. Another very well-known poem, Laughing Corn. Going a little longer with this today. Hope you don't mind. There was a high majestic fooling day before yesterday in the yellow corn. And day after tomorrow in the yellow corn there will be high majestic fooling. The ears ripen in late summer and come on with a conquering laughter. Come on with a high and conquering laughter. The long-tailed blackbirds are hoarse. One of the smaller blackbirds chitters on a stalk, and a spot of red is on its shoulder, and I never heard its name in my life. Some of the ears are bursting. A white juice works inside. Corn silk creeps in the end and dangles in the wind. Always, I never knew it any other way, the wind and the corn talk things over together. And the rain and the corn and the sun and the corn talk things over together. Over the road is the farmhouse. The siding is white, and a green blind is slung loose. It will not be fixed till the corn is husked. The farmer and his wife talk things over together. And let's move on to Prayers of Steel. Lay me on an anvil, O God. Beat me and hammer me into a crowbar. Let me pry loose old walls. Let me lift and loosen old foundations. Lay me on an anvil, O God. Beat me and hammer me into a steel spike. Drive me into the girders that hold a skyscraper together. Take red-hot rivets and fasten me, I lost my spot, and fasten me into the great central girders. Let me do that again. Take red-hot rivets and fasten me into the central girders. Let me be the great nail holding a skyscraper through blue nights into white stars. I'm having to wear magnifying glasses. The font is teeny in this book. That's what's going on. Even my bifocals don't pick it up too well. Okay, and I will close with Grass, another one of the more famous Carl Sandburg poems, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's very much an anti-war statement. This was written during World War I. Grass. Pile the bodies high at Austerlitz and Waterloo. Shovel them under and let me work. I am the grass. I cover all. And pile them high at Gettysburg. And pile them high at Prairie and Verdun. Shovel them under and let me work. 2 years, 10 years. And passengers ask the conductor, "What is this place? Where are we now?" I am the grass. Let me work. Poems from Carl Sandburg, a marvelous American poet, historian. He wrote a novel. What else did he do? He collected a collection of folk songs, and he could play and sing folk songs, and often did at parties. He actually lived long enough to meet Jack Kerouac and sing folk songs for him. So that's my Carl Sandburg for you for this week. We'll get back together again next Friday. God love you. Stay safe. This thing is not over yet. Shelter at home as much as you can. And keep a good thought for the people facing the fires and the hurricanes.